How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I saw your I can't remember where I saw your podcast advertisement ad or whatnot, and I was like, man, I was like, that sounds awesome because you're out in California. You got your profile's got surfing and whatnot. I used to live down in Florida, so I surfed while I was down there. I did a lot of longboarding, and I'm 6'7", so my
Oh wow.
shortboard my shortboard doesn't get very short.
Wow, six
Uh,
seven. That's pretty good. You don't see too many tall
yeah,
surfers out there. I'm 6'2". I'm
yeah.
usually the biggest one out there.
Yeah. So I mean, the Gulf of Mexico doesn't have like anything like you have in California by any means. So I had to travel to Jacksonville and hit the Atlantic if we wanted to get anything like real good, but
But you,
still, I think nothing like you guys have.
yeah, but you know the number one surfer in the world is from Cocoa Beach.
I Is it Kelly, isn't it?
Kelly Slater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that's what, if I remember right. That's where he's from originally. So
Yeah. So yeah, now he ride. I mean, he's actually in Bells Beach right now surfing another contest, but he's 50 and
yeah,
he's already won a contest this year at Pipeline. I think he's ranked seventh, and or no, not seventh, second, and he's 50 years old. So people
and
have
he's
memes of like a bald average or a middle aged guy is the number one surfer in the world. He was number one for a little bit this year, so
you know
it's
yeah
crazy.
he's like Tony Hawk. I mean, I just was watching a thing on Tony Hawk the other day on HBO. They have like a pretty neat documentary about him from when he was born and started skateboarding and whatnot. It was pretty neat to watch that. But I've always followed Kelly Slater and some of those other guys. They've got some, it's just crazy. Yeah, it'd be great to have moved to Hawaii when they did and grew up out there on the water and
Yeah,
and yeah, it's awesome. But
yeah, that's great. You surfed. I don't know, 6'7" though. What size board do you have? Or a longboard, like a 9 footer?
yeah, it was big. It was big. And then I had one. I tried to have one that was just a little bit taller than I was. So I mean, what, probably 6'8" for like the short board. It was. And I mean, it was tough to learn initially because the problem with the waves out at the Gulf is they don't have a lot of structure to them. So unless a hurricane's coming or a big tropical storm, there's not really like barrels or anything. I mean, it would have to get pretty rough because that's the problem for us to get like when we were get good surf out there. It was so rough though that it was like because there's no reef or anything. It's all just sand.
Yeah,
So there's nothing that like, and there's not like sets of it. Like, I mean, again, I've not been to California, but everything I've seen, it could be flat for a while and then they'll start coming in again. If
yeah,
I, maybe that's not how it works, but that's the way it looks. And for
yeah.
us, it's just like a constant beating. So even when you're trying to like paddle out and duck dive and all that stuff, I mean, it was just constant, like just one right after another. And
Yeah.
it would get old. Swallow a lot of water and breathe it in.
That's what I tell people when they want to learn how to surf. Surfing, actually standing up on a wave is such a small part of surfing.
Yeah.
The paddling, like you said, getting the beating, duck diving, going on nowhere to sit. Like there's so much more to surfing that a lot of people don't want to do it anymore because they're like, I just got my ass kicked for 20, 30 minutes. And now I'm sitting out here and yeah, people don't understand that surfing, like riding a wave is such a small part of surfing. The rest of it is a
Yeah.
battle. It's cardio. It's definitely a
Yep,
workout for
oh, I
sure.
love it, yeah, and the other thing too, I think that you guys have is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is like you guys can go like where you can see where it's breaking and where it kinda like runs out, you can go to like the left or right of that and kind of paddle out that way and kinda get behind it.
Yeah,
Like at the Gulf, it was there was none of that. It was just a constant like you would go where like it was bigger, but because it was all sand, it was changing daily. So maybe like in the morning it was in one spot, it was good and rideable, and then an hour or two later you're having to go farther down because it's eroded that sand and moved it, and so now it's changed and it's not so good here. You got to go down farther. And you guys have like this like the common hotspots, the common good areas.
yeah. So there's different breaks out here. You have point break is what you kind of described, where it's going to be the same spot. You catch the wave, you go on the right or the left, and then you go out to the channel, and you could have a chill spot to get back out in the lineup. That's a point break. There's also reefs out here. Same kind of concept. The waves are breaking on the reef, so you just take the wave and then you paddle out where there's no reef. But
Hmm.
places like Huntington Beach, where it's beach break, we have those issues where it's just breaking everywhere. You have to time when you get out if it's a big day and the current's flowing. So yeah, we have pretty much everything that you can have out here: reefs, point breaks, beach breaks. It just depends on where you live and how
Yeah.
dedicated you are to get to these spots. But yeah, I had a friend I met in Cabo a couple of years ago, and we stayed in touch through social media. And my wife and I went to Palm Beach to go see a concert out there a couple months in July. We loved it. I thought, oh, this would be a great place to live. I'd love it out here, but there's no surf. And then he started sending some pictures. He's like, he travels all over the world and he does all these things. And then I said, oh, where are you at now? And he says, oh, I'm at home in Palm Beach. And it was really, really good. And I was like, what? That's Palm Beach? I didn't think Palm
Oh,
Beach
yeah.
had any surf. He says, yeah, in the winter, no, wait, yeah, in the winter we get surf and we get, a lot of storm stuff. But I mean, it was crystal clear water. The air was like 85, the water was like 80, and I was like, oh man, I didn't know
Oh.
Palm Beach had waves because that changed my mentality of moving out there. I loved Florida when we were out there. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, then that's one thing too, like, I'm in Columbus, Ohio now, but the Great Lakes, they have a lot of surf. A lot of guys do a lot of winter surfing up here, which is crazy, but I've never done it, but I mean, and even in the summertime when what's a windy day or it's a good day, I mean, it has the bodies of water are so big that they break like the ocean does, and it
yeah,
rolls in just like that. So I mean, I've not gotten there to see them yet. I've seen tons of videos, and like I remember reading like surf magazines back in my 20s that were talking about places up in the Great Lakes, even up in Alaska, where people were wearing like wetsuits, but they were like they were running like hot water through them and stuff.
yeah. There's
And they had gloves on and masks. I mean, it's crazy, but again, like the stuff in Alaska was like it was beautiful, like watching them do it, and a
yeah.
lot of neat things.
There's a great movie that I kind of reference when people ask about surfing and what's it like being a surfer and everything. It's called Step in the Liquid, and they go through every aspect of surfing. People at the Great Lakes. I think they were in Wisconsin, so I don't know if that's a Great Lake, but whatever lake is
Yeah,
in Lake Michigan, I don't know. Uh,
yeah, yeah. Like Michigan's one, yeah, but that's the same one that Wisconsin's on.
yeah, so they were out there surfing, having a good old time, and he's like, "Yeah, we don't have the great waves like Pipeline or California, but we had the best fun out here." And he goes, oh, "Wait, the Packer game's on. We got to go." And so
Yeah,
they have a surf club out there in Wisconsin. It's kind of funny, but yeah, Step in the Liquid's a great movie if you did surf, but if people want to know about surfing, it just tells you the feeling that we get, why we do it, why we are
mhm,
addicted to it. It's just it's the best feeling in the world, I think. So that's why I'm addicted to it, and I spend most of my life searching for ways. And now I got an
yeah,
8-year-old Grom that fortunately for me, loves surfing just as much as me. So we're all over. We just went to Cabo last week. We used to live in Cabo. We
yeah,
came back and now we just surf. He was in a contest. Like it's full on surf mode again. So it's great for me. I love it.
yeah. That's great.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean we connected through a group that we're in, and you said yeah, I don't know if find firefighter paramedic and have a real estate for portfolio of 55 million. I was like, what's not to talk about there?
Yeah,
That's
right.
awesome.
Yeah,
So I don't know where you want to jump in. I mean, I respect the firefighter paramedic aspect. I don't even know where you want to jump in, but
yeah.
I
Well,
did,
I can kind of I got into real estate probably about 7 years ago. I've been a firefighter for 22 years. So when I was in Florida, I was a fireman. I actually worked on my station was on like a little barrier island, and we did all the water rescue for that part of the Gulf of Mexico. So I loved it. Like I said, it's funny because I grew up in North Dakota, an hour south of Canada, but I've always loved the water. And then when I moved to Florida because of the ocean. Like I went down there when I was in high school, and I was like, it just like I'd always loved the water, but then it just talked to me. Like I was like, this is I can't explain it. I feel like if it other people like you don't have they just know what you're saying, like it's
yeah,
and I miss it even now. I mean, I was working down there as a fireman. I was working the beach safety in Destin, like Fort Walton Beach area, and then met my wife. I worked at like 4 or 5 hurricanes and saw like all the craziness that came with that. And I was kind of like, I need to rethink my living situation. Like it's great being on the water, but we it was like every summer for 4 years we had these devastating hurricanes, and I thought, man, I'd much rather like come visit than live down here and have to deal with this stuff for like the rest of my life. So
yeah,
we ended up moving to Ohio because that's where her dad was, and I was like, hey, I want to kind of go back up north, but I don't want to go like back where I'm from. Like, where do we want to go? And we looked at going to the Carolinas, but at the time being a fireman, like they're not paid real great down in the southeast. So they were paid. The pay was better up here. So I thought, well, let's go up here, and then we can always travel back and forth or whatnot because it's like a day's drive or less to get back down there. So been doing that for what I think I got into the fire service in 2000. So been 22 years this year. Still doing it right now, active. Probably going to be transitioning away from it just because our portfolio has gotten so big and real estate has gotten to be like it just, I wouldn't say it's taken over everything, but in a good way. But yeah, so 7 years ago, I was like, man, I found myself working 1,000 hours of overtime in 1 year, and we worked 24-hour shifts, and we had 2 days off, and so on that time off, I was working overtime, and so at the end of the year, my wife and I sat down and we were like, we figured it out that I'd been at the firehouse for 6 months out of 12, like 24 hours, so like gone, like almost like deployed. And I
Right.
thought, man, this is just not sustainable. Like as we got married, had kids, I got 3 kids. So it was just, and then just life is happening. And, I'm like, what else can I do to kind of add to my income? Or like, people always say when they're trying to create wealth is, earn money while you sleep. That's something that Warren Buffett always talks about. Like how do the wealthy become wealthy? It's because they're making money while they sleep. Because you
Yeah.
only have so many man hours in a day, right? If you're the only one, the only person that's the is generating revenue for yourself, you can only work so much in a day and so much time in your life. And so you're kind of limited on the amount of money that you can earn. And I really wanted to get into it too, because, like what you're talking about, or what we talked about here today, even is I wanted to get back to that like lifestyle where I could work when I want to, like the time freedom. If I wanted to go to Florida for a month, or I want to come up to California for a couple of weeks, and I want to be able to surf, or I want to be able to do this, like being able to do that. And so nothing, everybody that I knew that was doing that was somehow involved with real estate. And so I was like, well, this is kind of like how I want to get into it, and I think I would be good at it. So I started learning, started doing a lot of studying. They have, back when I started, there was YouTube podcasts. There's all kinds of social media groups. Like none, like that was kind of just taking off as far as like the social media groups and the different people that you can learn from. I always kind of joke and say it was like Fight Club back when I was trying to get involved, where you kind of knew it was happening, but you didn't really
Couldn't
know
talk
like
about
anybody
it.
doing it. Yeah, and you didn't know like how do
Yeah.
I even start? Like I want to get in, but the only thing I know is like what's on HGTV or and so I finally met somebody that was actively doing it, and I thought I just clung to that guy, and I was like, man, like, I want to work with you. I want to know, like, learn what you know and like how you do it. And he was a general contractor that was flipping a lot of houses. He had some rentals, but they were, he had a small portfolio, but it got me the in to kind of start learning, like getting that hands-on experience. Because I'm being a fireman, like I'm very big, like on the job training. You can only read about something so much in a book. For me, getting out and actually doing it, like I always learn so much more that way. So
100%.
um, yeah, so I went to him, learned kind of like what he needed for his business, and I thought, well, hey, I don't have any experience, and I didn't have a whole lot of money at the time to invest in stuff, but I had time, and so I leveraged my time, my free time, with him to work basically for free, um, and I did that for about a year, and I learned in that time frame like how to manage rental properties, like how to buy them, where to find them, he was doing a lot of single family flips, and I realized too that that was like a job, and I was looking for something that was, I didn't want like another job, right? I already had a job, and so I realized, like, kind of going through all that, like, how could I stay being a fireman and then scale a business or a rental portfolio that would actually become sizable to where I could afford to pay somebody to do a lot of the work, but also maintain my career.
Mhm.
Because again, the whole reason getting into it was time freedom. I wanted to be able to stop working overtime, spend more time with my family, with my kids, doing stuff that we wanted to do, whether it was take the boat out or, travel or whatever. And so I picked multifamily, which is, the premise of guys that do like a larger multifamily stuff is having, if you have 100 single family homes spread out all over like a metro area or wherever you live, it's a lot more logistic heavy and a lot more time consuming to have that kind of a portfolio than having like two buildings on the same parcel with 100 units underneath two roofs or one roof, whatever the property looks like. And so having everything in one location, it builds in an easy way to scale. It allows you to have like management in place, whether you employ them or you have like third party company. It increases your buying power, whether you're buying building materials and whatnot, and then also your cost of labor. Because if I go to a contractor or a construction group and I'm like, hey, I've got 100 units, 100 apartments, we call them units. So if I have 100 units and I'm going to do all these renovations, their price is a lot better than it would be if I was just having them come do like one bathroom or lay some flooring in this house or do whatever. That, and then two, they take you more serious. So I'm, if I call a contractor or you call the contractor and you're like, hey, I've got 3 single family homes, and then I call and I've got like, hey, I've got 40 apartments right now that we need to do work, and they're going to come and want to do work for me just because it's a larger project, a bigger check for them.
Mhm.
So I saw a lot of like added upsides of going bigger, and it was really like I had like such a limiting belief at the time, being a blue collar guy, that like, how would I get into a deal like this? You know, how do you buy something that's worth $1 million, $2 million, $10 million? Like, what does that even look like? And so I kind of like I focused my education on like learning how to do that. And then the very first deal that I ever actually bought was a 50 unit that was just under $2 million. We paid for it. And we did a ton of renovations. I mean, there's a whole story that goes into that one, but we refinanced it a year later, and I pulled out $1 million in equity. And that was it. I was
That
like,
was
I'm set. Like
that
this
was
is
first deal?
yeah, yeah. I'm like, this is it. Like this is the way for me to get where I want to go. And so since then, we bought a bunch of more deals. We've done all kinds of different things. Like I said, so yeah, the portfolio right now that we manage, or we own. So the way that we do deals too is that we structure them. Like, I'll find a deal, and then we'll take it to various investors and say, hey, you know, like, or people that we are friends and family, and say, look, we're selling off equity. We bring in other people's money into the deal, so then other people get a chance to be a part of the deal. We run it, manage it, own it, like operate it, and we'll sell off equity. So there's some deals, like one deal I've got, I own 50% of. I sold off 50% to other people. I own one I own 70% of. I sold off 30%. You know, there's bigger deals. Like the largest one I've done to date, dollar wise, was a little over 10 million. And that one, you know, we sold off. Well, I think we sold off 55% of that deal.
Mhm.
So it, it's great for me, but it's also like it's like it's a way for, like, I always kind of say, like the little guy, right? Because if you want to, like, if you're like, hey, I've got $50,000 from in my 401k that I've saved for my whole life, or 100,000, whatever your retirement is, REITs and these big equity groups that are like in New York or even in California, like, they're not going to talk to you and me. Most normal people, right? They only want to talk to the very high net worth individuals, or people that are making $1 million plus a year. You know, that's where that's who they deal with. And most people that are like your average guy or gal, they don't know how to even get into deals like this. And most big apartment complexes that you see, which is what we buy, they are owned the way that we buy them, whether it's a REIT, whether it's a equity group, or for us, it's we're doing a syndication. That's how we buy them, and we take down these massive properties. And when you're in the commercial space, the you can increase the value or force the appreciation much easier than you can in like a single family home. Because a single family, you know, the market dictates what the value is, what your neighbor sold their house for can bring the value down. Like, there's all kinds of factors that go into affecting the residential market, and it's not the same with the commercial space. So that, you know, like I said, it's much more lucrative in this commercial space because we can force the appreciation on the properties much easier by just increasing the net operating income, or the amount that the property makes every year.
Now, is this something that when you found that guy, you learned all that information from him? Or
No.
did you learn what you needed to do to get that first deal and then just start learning as you went?
Yeah, that's it. So what I learned from him was a couple different things. I kind of tell people is I learned kind of like I always had like a construction background, being in the fire service, and I knew that I'm a lieutenant on a ladder truck, so I've always been in charge of like teams of people and like accomplishing set tasks and whatnot, like on the fire ground. So I knew that I could run and manage contractors and these jobs that he had. But I learned that, one, there's a lot of inefficiencies that go into house flipping. The risk is a lot higher in house flipping, in my opinion, because it can be affected by things that you can't control. And ultimately, what makes it a safer investment is that we can mitigate a lot of the risk by knowing, like, basically the control metrics or things going in. Like, we know what it costs to do this, and we know what it costs to do that. We know, you know, it's kind of set in the markets that we're in. So I know I learned that single family was not for me. I learned that flipping was not for me. I knew that, you know, like I said, for me to get what I wanted, which was ultimately time freedom with my family, generational wealth, like scaling a business. Like, when I bought my first deal, I never thought we'd be where we're at today. But, you know, that's happened in the last 4 years. And then, you know, where we'll be at in the next 4 years, we're doing a ground up development right now that, you know, it's 150 acres here in Ohio. Like, when it's all said and done, it'll be valued. That one deal will be valued more than my entire portfolio right now.
Wow.
So, you know, It's just a great way for me to like to generate wealth, but then we're also helping other people that invest with us to also create wealth for themselves through direct cash flow that they get from day one when we buy these properties. But then also they're buying equity, so then they get the long term. We call it mailbox money, but they get the long term like cash flow, and then they also get to take a part of the upside if we sell the property. So like I said, we buy it. Let's say we do a bunch of work to it. We force the appreciation up, $1 million, and then we hold it for five, and we sell it $2 million more than what we owe on it. They then in turn get paid out of that net profit. They get a chunk of that sale, based on the equity that they own. So it's really a great vehicle for other people, or like I say, like your average person to, it's just an alternative investment, rather than putting it in the stock market or putting it in a 401k and just giving it over to like a group or a company that invests for you on like you really, kind of park it and you're like, I don't really know what they're investing in. They're just picking the stocks, they're picking the markets, the whatever funds they're putting it in. It's a way for you to kind of have control of your money and then pick the deals that you're getting into. And like I said, sometimes the returns can be 10 times more than what the stock market can put out.
So are those, like, say, the average person, do they seek you out, or when you're looking for investors, where do you go to find investors? Or is there a big network of them, or like how do you get the people involved? Like, I mean, obviously friends and family, word of mouth,
Yeah.
but like if
A lot
somebody
of
out
it is just yeah, like a lot of it's like what I'm doing right now. Like we're just getting like telling people what you're doing, getting out in front of people. A lot of people, if you invest with somebody, you want to know, like, and trust them. And
there.
so it's really just kind of like building relationships and I get to know you, and then you're like, hey, I've got people out here in California that are like that would be interested in this, and then I get to know them, and we all kind of like network together. Like that's the way that what I found to be the most successful. There are guys that will do like they're considered 506B or 506C syndications where they can advertise. They could rent a billboard in Los Angeles and put like, "Hey, we're buying this property and contact us if you're interested," or whatever. And you can advertise. But 506B is usually like I say friends and family, but it's relationship driven. So the
Mhm.
SEC requires you to have some type of previous relationship with the person. But a lot of the investors that I've gotten to know and really kind of built like a friendship with are just people that have heard me on a podcast or heard of us through other people that have invested with us and had a great experience, and then they reach out through our website or they'll call me directly or they whatever the means is. And then once we kind of get we meet, then that's really it. Like we get to know each other. What are they looking for in an investment? And then when we find something, like usually get like on an email list or they'll get linked up to our investor portal. And then when we get a deal, we put it on our portal, and anybody that's on that investor list automatically gets an email sent to them and says, "Hey, we got an upcoming opportunity. Here's the basic metrics. Like for 100,000, you're going to get 8% guaranteed return annually, and then we will have your money for 18 months to 2 years. We'll have a capital event, which is usually we refinance. We pay you back your original capital, but then you maintain your equity in the deal for the life that we hold it.
Mhm.
And then when we sell, so you're getting quarterly. We send you money based on your equity percentage, and then when we sell the property, you net whatever. Like if you let's say you own 5%, then whenever we sell it, whatever the amount of money we made, you get 5% of that net. So
Yeah.
and you've had your money back for 2 3 years now. So it's a really amazing tool to create wealth and create um, just to move the needle really in people's lives. And if a lot of people are they have stuff in 401ks and they're like, well, I can't touch it till I'm 65 or older or till I'm in that retirement age. But a lot of people that invest with us, they have self-directed IRAs, and so you can move money. You can move the money that you have in like a 401k into a self-directed IRA, and then the company, like whatever company you use for that, you can pick the investments that they invest your money in. And so a lot of guys will invest with us through that. So maybe they've had a W-2 job for 30 years or 20 years or whatever, and they've saved all this money. They can take money out of their IRA, invest it into a deal, and then that money that gets paid out goes back to the IRA. And it's just a bigger return than it would be if they left it in the stock market or if they want to diversify. I'm not one guy that's going to always like knock the stock market, but obviously there's a lot of ups and downs, and the market can be, it can change overnight based on whatever's happening in the world. So
Yeah. How intimidating, or how was it going from firefighter. Are you still a firefighter now, currently?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Wow. So, because I have a bunch of firefighters out here in California that I know and grew up with, and they're always looking to do something like you said on your days, their days off. They're sometimes
Yep.
4 on, 4 off. Um, how was it to jump into that real estate world from being a firefighter and putting out, you put all your eggs in one basket being a firefighter, and then like, oh wait, I got some time. Like, what was the transition into that? I know your story, but mentally, like, what was the process
Mhm.
of like, okay, I need to do something else. How do I go after it?
I think, like, for me, it was, I know, like, the first deal we got it under contract, and I just remember sitting there being like, "Wow, $1,000,000." Like, I'm in contract for something over $1,000,000. I remember just sitting there watching my daughter at gymnastics, saying that to myself in my mind, like, "This is crazy," because before, I mean, $1,000,000 just seemed like so far out of reach, like just some crazy arbitrary number that, like, you see on a calculator, and I just never could get it to, like, you just never think that, like, I'd have to work 10 plus years in the fire service to make $1,000,000, like, to net that. And so you spread out over your lifetime, most people do, but you don't think about it as it's coming in paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And so I just think I was in a point of, like, I wouldn't say desperation, but I was at a point in my life where I was like, look, I can't, I'm either going to end up divorced, or my kids are going to completely dislike me because I'm never here. Like, I was working at the firehouse, and I was either working overtime at the same fire station, or, like, up here, it's real big to work part time somewhere else at a fire station, or, you go ride a medic somewhere, being a paramedic, like, not all the municipalities up here do, the fire departments do EMS. So,
Yeah.
like, mine, and in around Columbus, we do. So you get hired at the fire department, you're also riding a medic.
Hmm.
You're doing all the medical stuff. But there's some that they don't do that. They have, like, county EMS, and so there's a whole, like, the firefighters just ride fire trucks and do fire stuff and do auto accidents and whatnot, but they don't actually do, like, they don't treat patients and whatnot. And so here we do, and in California, I know is the same way. Where if you're in, like, Los Angeles, let's say Los Angeles Fire, or what, LA County Fire, they all are firefighter paramedics.
Hmm.
And so I was just in a position where I'm like, I really, like, I didn't have any choice. Like, I've got to make something happen. And I knew I just had enough confidence in myself. I guess I always feel like if you bet on yourself, it's more predictable. Like, I knew I was a sure thing, right? If I got involved in this and I was like, I'm going to go all in, that I will, like, die before it's not successful.
Yeah.
And so, how I bought my first deal was I went to another investor who was a single family, single family rental guy. He had a small mobile home park, and he had probably 300,000 or $400,000 in equity in these properties. And I just went to him and pitched the whole thing to him. I'm like, here's how we can scale. Here's how it will benefit you. Here's how I think I can grow your investment. And he knew me well enough to just say, look, I'll pull that equity out of my properties. I'm going to give it to you. So I took my money, I took his money, I put it together, and I went and bought this property. I gave him 50% equity because it was my first deal.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but that was it. So, like I said, he made out great. He got all of his money back, plus his equity, and then we still own the property today, and it nets about $25,000 a month.
How long
Uh,
did it take you from firefighter to make that? Like, to me, it just seems amazing. Like, get that sales pitch, get that pitch to that guy that you said you made the first deal with.
mhm.
Like, I mean, you sound like you're a very confident guy. You just studied up on it, learned as much as you can, got some information from the guy that you went with, and then started making these pitches to these guys.
That was it. Yep.
Really?
I believed in the framework, I guess you'd say, that I learned from other people doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what, like, they're telling me 2 plus 2 equals 4, and here's how, and this is how they know it because they've done it, multiple deals. I'm like, well, there you go. That's all I need is a roadmap, basically, of, like, how to get to financial freedom and time freedom and whatnot. And so, having him again trust me, I have, I'm very driven. My character and my reputation, my name is, that's always a big deal. I'm still kind of like a blue collar, like, your word is your bond. We shake hands, and I don't go back on that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But that's what got my first round of investors to actually invest with me, is because they knew me and knew that that's how I operated. So if I told them that they're not going to lose any money, they knew I would, like, sell my house, and I'd go bankrupt, like, personally, before I ever lost a dime of theirs. But
How did you
you
know
know,
those investors? Did you know them through the firehouse, or how did you
yeah,
meet?
so, a couple of them were through the firehouse. A couple of them two of them was like in my first two deals. A lot of them were either a couple of them were guys I worked with, and then some of them were guys. They were parents of people I worked with. So like on the one guy, I'd worked with him for 5 or 6 years. His dad invested because his dad had always wanted to get into rental properties, but he was in his 60s and he had a bad back. And he's like, look, I understand that real estate is a great tool to create wealth, but I can't do it anymore. And so he was like, but I will trust you and invest with you to do it. And I mean, he's invested twice with me. He did not want equity in a deal. He wanted to just straight like do a loan. So I did a promissory note, and he just straight gave me money, and I used it in these deals. But he's probably made $20,000 for me in 3 years,
Did you put a lot
just
of
by
your own money in that first deal?
I probably put a little north of 100 grand in the first deal, but that's all. I mean, that's what I had saved for years and years. I cashed out some IRAs and different things that I had. I paid the penalty to just pull it out because when I started my fire career in Florida, and then when I left Florida, I was there for about 8 years. When I left and I came to Ohio, I cashed out my pension in Florida because it wasn't like transferable. So the money that I had when I cashed that out, I had saved, and I used that to go towards my the first property amongst the other stuff that I had saved while we were up here. So I was all in. Like I said, if the deal doesn't go well, I'm losing all my money. My investor's going to lose his money, and not to say that he's going to lose his money, right? If you're putting your money into a deal initially, we basically raise enough money to buy the property. So your initial investment is backed by the property. It's still worth what it's worth. So even if worst case scenario we had to sell it, your money is part of the down payment, so it's still tied up in the property. Like it doesn't disappear. It's just for us, we get people to invest because we underwrite these properties, and we're like, look, we can pay you an 8% return, and then over the life of us holding the property, we'll save it 20%. So the only thing that changes is your return might not be as good than we thought it would be, but you're not going to lose your money. Like we it would the only way people get into that is like if they don't know what they're doing. And then, like I said, you buy a property and you don't know what you're doing, and then it gets away from you, and then it can get bad quickly if you don't know what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, your occupancy is 50%, and the bank has to take the property back from you, or you're selling it in distress. I mean, we've bought properties from people like that, and it's great for us because we get them at like a fire sale because they're just trying to get rid of it to kind of salvage whatever they can. But that the I would say the bigger the property, the more doors, the bigger the dollar amount is. Like the dollar amount scares a lot of people. So if I call and said, "Hey, I got a property we're buying for $30 million," a lot of people are like, "Holy cow! Like that's a crazy number." But the bigger the property is, the more expensive it's going to be. Obviously, the better market it's probably in, and that actually makes the asset less risky because you're spreading it out over either the market is great or there's more doors, and so you can either there's more room for mistakes, if you would, or there's like if you bought a property that's 200 doors and we paid 12 million for it, we'll know going in like, hey, 40 people would have to move out of this place before we would even think about not being able to pay the bills,
Mhm.
right? And so worst case scenario, we're just paying the bills. So I mean it's if you have one house or you have two houses, and then those tenants move out, you're on the hook for that mortgage. And if you haven't saved the money that you've made up until that point, like you better be ready to write a check out of your personal checking account. And so that's where, like I said, the bigger the property, the bigger the more doors, the more safe it is. The dollar amount goes up on those properties, but it's nothing that should be concerning to people.
Yeah. When you, I don't know anything about real estate, so excuse me if these sound
No, no, no,
like
no.
same
Yeah, no,
question. But do you find a deal first and then go to the investors? Like, how do you secure the property or the building to say, hey, I'm going to come in here with my investors, or how does that process work? You find the location, then you go to your investors and say, I have a possibility, or how do you secure it to make sure that you have everybody on the same page? Kind of putting the cart before the horse, or the horse. How do you do it? How do you structure it?
yeah. So I'm constantly like, oh, like we always jokingly say like you're always raising capital, or you're always networking, you're always trying to build your investor list or your investor base. You're always trying to meet people that want to do that. Like again, the perfect person for us is somebody that understands that real estate is a great investment tool to create wealth. They don't necessarily have the time to do it or the will to do it, right? Like for instance, you're like, hey, I get it. Real estate's great. I want to invest in it, but I want to be surfing. I don't want to be managing a bunch of tenants, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to take the money that I have that I think could go towards real estate, and I'm going to plug it into a deal that Seth is doing, and then I'm going to get this money sent to me every quarter, and he's going to send me this check, And this is great, right? And my money's secured by an asset that I know I could go drive, I could fly there and see it if I wanted to, walk the property, do whatever. That's where my money is tied up at. But then I'm getting paid while I'm out surfing. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about it. So we're always building that network of investors. We have this like you can see this patch right here. It's called Firehouse Bros. So we
Mhm.
have our educational platform that we use. So we educate people. It started off kind of like trying to help firefighters understand what we're doing, and then kind of like going back and helping the brothers get educated so that they can also like because a lot of guys will retire with money and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. That's the most. Some of them, it's the most money they've ever had in one time. And
Mhm.
so it was kind of like educating them that this is a great tool. And as we've kind of grown that, we teach people now like how to invest, what to invest in, how we do it, how we take these deals down. But we're like that's part of we're constantly seeking out investors, we're constantly building relationships and networking, and then we're always looking for deals. So like right now, I'm working on a huge land development. I've got another 56 unit deal that I'm underwriting right now that we're looking at getting in contract. I got sent a 40 unit deal yesterday that looks very, very promising that we're underwriting. So we constantly have deal flow. Like part of what I do is I network, I find investors, I deal with brokers, I find deals, and so I'm always sourcing those things. And so we've kind of like that, like you said, we always kind of have people primed that are like, we have a good like a list of people, an email list or a group of people that we know are interested in what we're doing and interested in real estate. And then we'll go out and we find these deals, and as we find them, we underwrite them, and we're like, yeah, this is like a winner. This is going to be a good one that will interest enough people to put their money in. Then we send it out to that email list, and
Mhm.
then what we'll usually do is we'll put on like a webinar, and we'll say or like a Zoom call, and everybody that's interested in that property will get on the Zoom call or the webinar, and then we run through the deal. Hey, here's the market. Here's why we like it. Here's the returns. Here's what the property looks like. Here's pictures. Like here's what we know about it, and we think it'll be great. And then people, through our investor portal, they're like, yeah, that sounds great. I want to do it. And then they go through our investor portal to say, look, I want to basically they pledge that they're going to put in 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever the dollar amount is, and they lock in their spot, and then they're buying shares of that property's equity
Yeah.
based on the deal structure.
Is it a lot of firefighters that you're helping, or is anybody get involved in that?
Yeah, it's anybody. I mean, like I said, initially we thought Tim and I. So my main partner, our investment company is called the Stream Group,
Mhm.
and our education brand is Firehouse Bros. But Tim, my partner, it's the two of us. He's also a lieutenant in the fire service. So him and I met. He works. Well, we both work at different departments, but we're both here in Central Ohio, and so that's why we're the Firehouse Bros, because that's where we got our start, was the firehouse. And a lot of stuff that we do, like we have they're called like channel, like we just do a lot of stuff that we do is like it's tied back to the fire service. So we do things where like most people will be like, I don't understand that. Well, we kind of like it's like tradition of the fire station, or like we've got I think I got one on me. I'll show it to you. So we give all of our investors, they're actually pretty neat, so I don't know if you can see it or not, but they're challenge coins. So
Mhm.
this side says the Stream Group, and then this side says Firehouse Bros on it. And these are really neat. They're really they're get their base or their start like in the military. But like if you're, let's say you're SEAL Team 6 or you're Green Beret or you're whatever you're in, they all those groups, they have challenge coins. So it's kind of like frat house. Like if you're in a certain frat, you get a challenge coin.
Yeah.
And what usually happens is when let's say we go out to dinner, like you and I come out to California, we meet up, and you're in the fire, or I go to, let's say you introduce me to some of your firefighter friends out there, they may all have challenge coins from their individual stations or from their departments or whatnot. And so the thought of it in the fire service is you go out and you put down your challenge coin, and whoever doesn't have the coin with them pays for drinks or pays for the meal. And in the military, it's like the guys, whoever has the coolest challenge coin or like the highest ranking guy there with the coin, he gets to eat or drink for free that night. And so, like I said, it's just kind of like it's kind of like a fraternity thing, police, military, fire. Like it's a very kind of like fraternity style brotherhood, or sisters. I mean, obviously there's women in all those branches now, but so we give that to all of our investors, and the way that you get that is by investing with us, because that's the way that we look at it. Is like we're like a big family that once the biggest thing for us is having like repeat people, right? Is if you have a great experience with us, and you're like, man, these guys actually, like, they gave me the money they said they would, and everything went well. That you want to just roll into the next deal or reinvest or whatnot, and that's how we kind of grow our group or our fraternity, is operating with integrity, doing what we say we're going to do, just being those guys. And that's the way that Tim and I operate. And so, like I said, we started the investment company. And so when people invest, they invest through the stream group. And then our education side is like basically we're teaching people how to invest. We teach them like what we do, how we do it, all that kind of stuff is done through the Firehouse Bros.
Nice. So what lessons have you taken from being a firefighter in your career there over to the real estate and investment world?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I think the big thing for me is that, like, a lot of people, they're that feeling like that I get, like when with the fire service, it's kind of like a catch-all anymore. Like if you ask any of the people that doing it, I mean, like if people have a situation pop up in their life and they don't know how to like mitigate it, they don't know what else to do, so they call 911.
Mm,
And the police do what the police do. That they're like, I wouldn't say they're linear, but they just do policing, right? The fire, and then everything else falls underneath the fire department. So it could be high angle rescue, it could be trench rescue, it can be water rescue, it can be EMS, it can be hazmat, it can be all these different things that we have to know. And I think that the thing that Tim and I really try to like bring into the investment world is like when we would show up on fire trucks, like people were so thankful and just happy that we were there, that we were going to solve their problems. And that's really like what we believe in, is that real estate is a way to solve your problem, right? Like right now, if you had all your money in the stock market, it's probably tanked and you've lost a ton of money on paper,
mm,
right? If you had your money in crypto, I mean, I've got a lot of friends that do a lot with crypto, and it's obviously, if you're a lifetime crypto guy and you're going to leave your money in crypto for many, many years, you're probably going to do great. And if you got in really early, like in Bitcoin, I mean, you're probably $100 million, right? But let's talk if you're that guy. But so there's a lot of people that have won big in crypto, for instance, but your average person doesn't win big, or they
yeah.
don't know enough about it, or they get freaked out and they pull their money out at the wrong time and then they lose money. And even like if you look at like what Robinhood did to the GameStop stock, I mean, how your average guy was getting in on that, and like, and it should have been great, but because they were affecting one of these big hedge funds, it got stopped.
Yeah.
And nobody knew that was coming, right? So your average guy that was putting in money into that GameStop stock, you know, he lost a ton of money, most of them. And so what we try to do is like, that's, I would say, probably the biggest thing that I like, or that I take pride in, is that we want to be that solution for the average person, or whatever, whoever you are, that like, that like when you're dealing with us, that like we're like that same feeling you get, like these guys know what they're doing, my money's safe, the what they're saying is legit, the property looks great, like they know what they're doing, they've operated, because we're vertically integrated now, where we buy the property, we manage the property, and we do all the renovations. So we have all the construction in house. So we've not everybody does that, and so we've done that because that was the biggest way that we could maintain control over like how this thing plays out. Because you could, like, there's a ton of people out there that do what I do, but they're buying a property and then they're turning it over to like a third party property management company, and they don't really know what to do or how to operate it. So if that deal starts to go bad, like how do I, like, now what, right? You were relying on that management company to manage it, and they're not doing a very good job. What are you going to do other than like scream and yell at them or fire them? Like, what are you going to do to fix it? A lot of guys don't know what to do. Or like, I had a friend of mine actually from Northern California. He invested with somebody out here in Cincinnati, and he went to some friends he had in California and said, "Hey, this guy looks great, like let's do it." They invested. The guy basically started stealing money from the investment, and then Dave had to move out here to Cincinnati because he put his name on the line, right? He vouched for this guy, for all the people that he knows out there in California that invested. And he was like, look, the guy basically took the money and ran. So Dave moved out here to Cincinnati, and he's been out here for now for 2.5 years, uh, trying to make it work when I met him. And then we've been able to help him out a lot. And he's kind of got it stabilized now. But that's the risk, I guess, that you run by putting in money with somebody that you don't know. And
Yeah.
that's what, like I said, that's for us, is like, I would say that's probably like the biggest thing. I mean, there's probably more if I could think about it. It's honestly, I've never been asked that, and that's a great question.
Yeah.
But I think that's where, for me, that's probably the biggest thing, is like, I take pride in the fact that like people, when they give us their money, like they know that they can trust us, and like I will die on a hill before I ever lose a dime from anybody else, and that's just something that's like true to my core. And I think I bring that from the fire service, like just like I'll go into a burning building, into something that looks terrible and scary, and there's always a chance you're not going to come out, but I'll go do that to find that person or get that person out or give them like hope or a chance. and that's kind of like we bring that into the investing world with what we do. So
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people gotta put those two together and say that, when they're doing their due diligence and looking at an investor, they're probably thinking about that. Like, hey, this guy's a firefighter. He's got to be an upstanding citizen. Got to be a good guy, and that probably helps the cause a lot, right?
I would hope so. I mean, I can't say that anybody's like come out and told me that, but I know that like a lot of people, they love our story. Like whether we stay firemen forever or not, that's where that's what we're grounded in, and that's like where it started. And that's like I said, that's how we carry ourselves the same way we've carried ourselves in our careers and on the truck. And like that. It's within the firehouse. We always say that. Like, what other job? The public trust is such a huge thing. Like, what other job are you gonna? Your child is sick in the middle of the night, or your wife is sick, or whatnot. Like, you call 911 and you have these 5 or 6 guys show up who you've never seen, you don't know them from Adam, and then you just let them in your house. You're in the middle of the night, your wife's in her nightgown, kids, is sick in the bed, and you're letting me pick your child up in my arms and take him out to our medic and go off to the hospital with them. Like, you don't know me, but you let me do that. And like I said, that level of trust is so important to the fire service and should be to the guys on the truck. It's definitely very important to Tim and I, and that's like I said, that's kind of like I said, where we bring that from the fire services. You know that there's no like we always operate above reproach and above bar, and we're always that's super important for us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you guys being of service and being part of the community. That's great. Um, so you started out by saying you did this to get some more time. Has that been? It sounds like you're busier than ever with your firefighting, and then you'd have your. Has it worked out? Do you have more time? Or, I mean, sounds like
Yeah,
you're
no,
focusing
I
it
feel like
out.
I'm in control of my time more, right? Because we have about 16 people that work for us now, so we've grown the company to be pretty big. So I'm not like I get to spend my time doing, I guess, the stuff that I want to do. There's a lot of days where we're kind of doing like executive level stuff, or we're doing kind of like higher level planning. And like yesterday, we had a great like kind of like executive planning session and trying to figure out like where can we build out more efficiencies? What do I have to get off my plate? What does Tim got to get off his plate? That where we can focus on more things, because for the two of us, we have to be focusing on deal flow, meeting and networking with investors, uh, you know, uh, just all the things that take the, I guess, like the higher 10,000 foot view. And so, when I first did my first deal, no, I was down there every day. I was at the firehouse. I started off doing the work because I mean, the most firemen, they're pretty good in the trades industry. They can do like concrete or drywall or framing or whatever. Most firemen can. And so I was down there doing a lot of that work. And then as I got more and more units became vacant, I was getting behind on how fast, one or two people could turn these things. And I realized quickly I had to put together a team of contractors to like, and then kind of like I had to like kind of like be the quarterback, and then they had to like do the work. So I had to put the plan together. I had to um, relay the plan to them and kind of lead them, and then but they're the ones doing the work. And so I realized fairly quickly I had to put the tools down, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now. Is like I don't deal with tenants directly. I deal with, like I said, the staff that we have. We have a great team around us, which has allowed me to maintain a career at this point, and Tim as well, and continue to grow because we have this great people around us. We have executive level people that we've brought from other careers that are, I would say, they're like our right and left hands. I mean, so we like yesterday was with two of them. We're basically whiteboarding, having like a 3 hour whiteboarding session, and then the plans and things that we come up with in that room, they are then in charge of executing. So the team is always working on this stuff every day, all day. And then, that frees Tim and I up to be able to do other things. So, I'm busy, but I'm busy doing stuff that I love doing, that I like doing, but I still have like, I get to say, when I'm done,
Yeah.
right? I'm not like at a W-2 job where somebody else is telling me when I'm done or whatnot. And so, that's nice. Like my wife and I, we went to Charleston, South Carolina last week, went down there for business. I never got to do that with the fire service, so I get to take her on a trip. I took my kids to Disney last year. While I was down there, I met with 3 or 4 investors, so we get to do things where it ties into my job or into what we do. So it's great, but it also is the reward is much higher where I'm creating generational wealth for my kids. We're building something from nothing, and all those things are great. So I mean, I'm busy, but it's a different kind of busy. And then again, I'm not gone. I'm not gone every night. I think the hard thing is, you're gone a lot, just like the military. You get deployed and you're in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever you're at for months and months and months on end, that's what really can get rough on the family.
Do you see yourself retiring from the firehouse anytime soon and focusing all on that? And just-
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it's coming. I mean, I don't like, I've never like come out and said like, oh, I'm gonna be done this year or whatnot, but you know, I could see myself in the next 12 months or so being done. We've got a big land development deal that we're working on right now. It's 150 acres. It's going to be 200 apartments, 200 condos, kind of like age targeted housing, so like 55 and older, and then 300 to 325 single family homes. Which that part we're going to sell off because we don't want to build single family homes, but we're doing all the entitlements. So we're doing all the building all the roads, street lights, all the underground utilities, and we're doing all that stuff right now with engineering. And so that deal will become so big that it will require me to probably walk away.
yeah. Well, Seth, I'm blown away. This,
Uh,
this is very informative. This is great. I love it. So, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they reach out to you?
so I'm on, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I think I'm on TikTok now. You can probably just look my name up, Seth Teagle, and you can find me. You can check our website out. It's called www.thestreamgroups. It's plural streamgroups.com. They can check us out there, and then like through the website, and they can get a hold of me directly through any of my social media. But the website, you go there, and then you can fill out like a questionnaire, and then that gets emailed, and then that's usually how like investors will reach out. Some of them will reach out directly, but others will go through the website, and they kind of ask you some questions. That way, you kind of get directed to the right person, and then myself or Tim usually follow up with those folks, and then that's really, like I said, that's how the relationship starts.
Okay. Little side note: what's the requirements to become an investor?
It really depends on the deal. Like, so if we're doing like a large deal, like let's say we're raising like several million, it's usually 50,000 to 100,000 is like the starting investment. You can always be more. Like if people, we've had people do up to about, I think the biggest I've had was 1.5 million we had in one deal. So you can, no matter whatever dollar amount you want to put in, that's how much equity you're buying. So if that's if you believe in the deal a lot, you want to put a bunch in. But most, I mean, I'd say a lot of people do like 50, 100, 150, 200, somewhere in that ballpark. It just kind of depends on if they've been investing for a long time or this isn't their first time doing something like this. They're usually prone, or they're prone to do more, I guess, or put in more. But if it's like your first one, kind of you're dipping your toe in the water, most people will do 50. There's some smaller deals that we'll put together that might be like I said, like that 50 unit deal. Maybe it's 25,000. It just, the smaller the number, the more people you have to have involved, so the pie gets cut. We don't want to cut the pie into 100 slices. We'd rather cut it into like 10 or
Yeah.
12 or whatever. And so it just depends on the dollar amount that we're raising. Like I said, if we're doing 3 million, we might set the minimum at 100,000.
Mhm.
But it just depends. I mean, we've had people invest 10,000. We've had people, it really depends on the deal.
Yeah. Do you have multiple deals going on at a time, or is it generally just?
Sometimes yeah, I'd say like we try not to get too many going. I think like probably like have two, maybe three at the most
Mhm.
going at any one time. It just really depends on. I mean, we will look at probably 50 deals, and only one will actually make sense.
Yeah.
Because and especially like right now, the market's the way that it is. Like people are asking top dollar for their properties and whatnot. So it's trying to find the ones where we can add value and force appreciation, or like maybe we find, maybe like I've got the one I'm looking at right now. Two gentlemen built it 15, 20 years ago, and then they passed away, and their wives have been running it with their sons, and the sons, and they're all kind of ready to sell it. So it's completely off market. We've ran into them just through direct relationships, and that's a deal where if we buy it, their rents could be $200-300 below market.
Mhm.
And the way that you increase the value of, like I said earlier, is the commercial properties, increasing that net operating income, and you can just, I mean, you can have explosive value added by making the property earn more money a year. So
Mhm.
if like I said, if you can find something that you buy it on the current financials, and going into it that you can raise the rent a couple $100 to just bring it to market, and then maybe you're managing a little bit better than whoever was doing it before. And let's say that property can earn, I don't know, 30, 40, $50,000 more, depending on the cap rate for that market. We can tell you what we think that the new value of that property will be. And that's kind of how we make decisions on what we're going to do is here's where we're at today, based on sales of that area or like kind of property, where do we think we can have that value at in a year or two? And then that's how we base all of our underwriting off of, and just we just know because we've done so many and we've executed so much in the space what we can do, what's realistic and what's not. So
Mm. Well, thank you. I mean, that for 7 years you've been doing this. I'm super impressed, and I'm sure the listeners are as well. But I'm definitely going to be sending this to my firefighter friends and telling me when they're griping about, oh, I don't have this. And I mean, listen to what my man did, Seth over here
yeah,
did. So
yeah.
this is
Well, and
awesome.
two, if any of the guys are going to FDIC is in Indianapolis. It's like the largest gathering of firefighters in the country. Tim and I are going to be there, so we're going to
Okay.
have a table there. Firehouse Bros, just trying to talk to firemen and educate them on, what their options are. And that they do. Our slogan for that is "You deserve more than a pension," because
Yeah.
a lot of guys, like in Central Ohio, they put 30 years in and they break their bodies down, and they get to the end and they realize that pension that they've been working so hard for, it barely pays the bills, or like with the cost of insurance going up, they have enough to basically pay for insurance until they get to be real true retirement age, 65, 67, and so they're having to go out and work another job for another 15 years. And it's just, they just deserve more than that. They deserve better than that. So that's kind of where we're going to this conference to kind of try to get the word out to other firefighters out there that, hey, we're hopefully we inspire some folks, and hopefully there's some people that want to invest and or just learn more. There's no strings attached if people reach out and want to chat or learn more, and
Just
you know
do the fire. We both have a call here in a little bit, but I keep having more questions. Does the firehouses kind of tell you, hey, why are you trying to push people away from the firehouse, or is it just adding on to the firehouse work? And like, do they think that's kind of like a conflict of interest?
so we're not, I wouldn't say we're trying to like push people away from the firehouse. It's more like, like I said before, if you're like, I had a talk with a guy yesterday who's a local fireman. His house is paid off, and he's like, man, I could do a Heloc on my house, take the money out, invest it into a deal you're doing. It will pay enough to pay my Heloc back, like pay my monthly payment of the Heloc. So it doesn't cost me anything to access that money, but that money's working for me while I'm working my job.
Hmm.
Right. So that's where like the pairing is that, like if I put $100 away every paycheck into deferred comp, which is like a kind of like a 401k, government ran 401k here in Ohio, on average, if over my life and my career, I put $100 away a pay, I'll have $120,000, $130,000 saved, but it's all pre-tax. So what I really have in there, or whatever the tax rate is when I retire, it's really not that much. So here I've saved my entire career thinking I'm going to have a lot of money, and maybe I only have $80,000 in there after they take taxes out after I retire. Well, $80,000 today is not the same as $80,000 in 15, 20 years, right? We see that right now with inflation.
Yeah.
So that's where like we're trying to get them to understand that if you take your money that you have now and you put it into a cash flowing asset that is a hedge against inflation, right? As inflation increases, the value of that asset increases. Your money, your dollar increases in value rather than if you just have it in a 401k or your savings account, it's not increasing. And so it actually becomes less valuable over time. So it's more like financial education is what we're trying to do with firemen. And
Mhm.
then it's kind of like a pairing, right? Like we don't necessarily want a guy that's working for LA County Fire to leave the fire service, but if he's got the means to invest in an alternative investment, this is a great vehicle to do it in, and you're investing with other firemen.
Yeah. I think that's
And
awesome.
it's for anybody, but that that's where we're at with it. And I don't know. I would hope that they wouldn't think it was a conflict of interest because we're still on the riding the truck, we're doing our thing, we're
Yeah.
answering the call, we're still doing all the normal things that we do. But
Yeah. Well, hey man, I appreciate it. I appreciate the service you do in the firefighter, and I appreciate your time here, taking the time to talk to us about it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's stay in contact. Like I said, and if you do get anybody out there that wants to chat, put them in contact with me. That'd be awesome.
Well, it'll be me too. I want to chat to you later
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
buddy.
let's do it for sure. So.
Okay. Well, hey, anytime you want to come to California, we'll get some waves, and
I've never been, so I will take you up on that. I've actually got family out there in the San Francisco area that I've been meaning to come out there and visit. So
yeah, that's Northern California and Southern Cal are like two different states. It's a lot colder up
yeah,
there and a lot more sharks, but yeah, open invitation anytime you want to come out here before it totally gets crazy out here. I mean, it's clown world right now, but there's still some surf. That's what keeps me sane. So
yeah,
I
well, that
appreciate
sounds
it,
good.
Seth, and
Absolutely.
thank you very much, brother.
Yep. Have a great one.
All right, bye.
Bye.